Chapter 20, I shall live forever and ever and ever. But they were forced to wait more than a week. First, there were some very windy days, and then Colin caught a slight cold. These two setbacks would normally have thrown him into a furious rage. However, he was kept busy with so much careful, secret planning. Almost every day, Dickon stopped by, even if only for a few minutes, to share updates about the moor, the lanes, the hedges, and the stream banks. He talked about the homes of otters, badgers, and water rats, as well as birds' nests and field mice burrows. Hearing these intimate details from a real animal charmer made them tremble with excitement. They realized how eagerly and anxiously the whole busy underworld of nature was working.
They are just like us.
Dickon said.
Only they have to build their homes every year, and it keeps them so busy they really scramble to get them done.
The most exciting part, however, was preparing to transport Colin to the garden in complete secrecy. No one could see the wheelchair, Dickon, and Mary after they turned a specific corner of the shrubbery and reached the path outside the ivy-covered walls. As the days passed, Colin became more convinced that the mystery of the garden was its greatest charm. Nothing must ruin that. No one must ever suspect they had a secret. People had to think he was simply going outside with Mary and Dickon because he liked them and didn't mind them looking at him. They had long, delightful talks about their route. They planned to go up one path, down another, cross over, and circle the fountain flower beds, pretending to look at the newly planted flowers that Mr. Roach, the head gardener, had laid out. It would look so normal that no one would suspect a thing. Then they would turn into the shrubbery paths and disappear until they reached the long walls. The plan was as serious and detailed as a military strategy designed by great generals in wartime. Rumors of the strange new things happening in the boys' rooms had naturally spread from the servants' hall to the stables and the gardeners. Even so, Mr. Roach was startled one day when he received orders to go to Master Colin's room. He was told to report to the very apartment that no outsider had ever seen, because the young master wanted to speak to him in person.
Well,
He said to himself as he quickly changed his coat.
what is going on now? His Royal Highness, who refused to let anyone look at him, is calling for a man he has never even seen.
Mr. Roach was quite curious. He had never caught even a glimpse of the boy and had heard dozens of exaggerated stories about his strange looks, his behavior, and his wild temper tantrums. The most common rumor was that he might die at any moment. People who had never even seen him had spread vivid descriptions of a hunched back and useless limbs.
Things are changing in this house, Mr. Roach.
Mrs. Medlock said, leading him up the back staircase to the corridor outside the mysterious room.
Let's hope they are changing for the better, Mrs. Medlock.
He replied.
They could hardly change for the worse.
She continued.
And strange as it all is, some of us are finding our work a lot easier to bear. Don't be surprised, Mr. Roach, if you walk into a miniature zoo with Martha Sowerby's Dickon looking more at home than you or I ever could.
There really was a kind of magic about Dickon, just as Mary had always believed in secret. When Mr. Roach heard his name, his expression softened and he smiled.
He would be at home in Buckingham Palace or at the bottom of a coal mine.
He said.
And yet it is not rudeness at all. He is just a wonderful lad.
It was a good thing he had been prepared, or he might have been startled. When the bedroom door opened, a large crow perched comfortably on the high back of a carved chair announced the visitor by calling out.
Caw.
Very loudly. Despite Mrs. Medlock's warning, Mr. Roach barely managed to keep his dignity and avoid jumping backward. The young master was neither in bed nor on his sofa. He was sitting in an armchair, and a young lamb stood beside him, wagging its tail the way lambs do when feeding, while Dickon knelt to feed it milk from a bottle. A squirrel perched on Dickon's bent back, carefully nibbling a nut. The little girl from India sat on a large footstool, watching the scene.
Here is Mr. Roach, Master Colin.
Mrs. Medlock said. The young master turned and inspected his employee. At least, that was how the head gardener felt.
"Oh, you are Roach, are you?
He said.
I sent for you to give you some very important orders."
Very good, sir.
Roach answered, wondering if he was about to be ordered to cut down all the oak trees in the park or turn the fruit orchards into water gardens.
"I am going out in my wheelchair this afternoon.
Colin said.
If the fresh air agrees with me, I may go out every day. When I do, none of the gardeners are to be anywhere near the long walk by the garden walls. No one is to be there. I will go out around 2 o'clock, and everyone must stay away until I send word that they can return to their work."
Very good, sir.
Mr. Roach replied, very relieved to hear that the oak trees and orchards were safe.
"Mary,
Colin said, turning to her.
what is that phrase you use in India when you are finished talking and want people to leave?"
You say, you have my permission to go. Mary answered. Colin waved his hand.
"You have my permission to go, Roach.
He said.
But remember, this is very important."
Caw.
The crow remarked, hoarse but not impolite.
Very good, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Roach said, and Mrs. Medlock led him out of the room. Outside in the corridor, because he was a good-natured man, he smiled and then let out a quiet laugh.
My goodness.
He said.
He has a very lordly way about him, doesn't he? You would think he was a whole royal family rolled into one. Yes.
Mrs. Medlock sighed.
We have had to let him walk all over us ever since he had feet, and he thinks that is what people were born for. Perhaps he will grow out of it if he lives.
Mr. Roach suggested.
Well, one thing is certain.
Mrs. Medlock said.
If he does live and that girl from India stays here, I guarantee she will teach him that the whole world doesn't belong to him, as Susan Sowerby says. He is bound to find out what his own share is.
Inside the room, Colin leaned back on his cushions.
"It is all safe now,
He said.
and this afternoon I will see it. This afternoon I will be inside it."
Dickon went back to the garden with his animals, while Mary stayed with Colin. She did not think he looked tired, but he was very quiet before their lunch arrived, and remained quiet while they ate. She wondered why and asked him about it. What big eyes you have, Colin. She said. When you are thinking, they get as big as saucers. What are you thinking about now?
"I can't help thinking about what it will look like."
He answered. The garden. Mary asked.
"The springtime."
He said.
"I was thinking that I have really never seen it before. I hardly ever went outside, and when I did, I never looked at it. I didn't even think about it."
I never saw it in India because there wasn't any. Mary said. Despite his closed-off and gloomy life, Colin had more imagination than Mary did. He had at least spent a lot of time looking at beautiful books and pictures.
"That morning when you ran in and said, 'It's come, it's come,' you made me feel so strange. It sounded as if spring was coming in a grand procession with bursts of music. I have a picture like that in one of my books, crowds of beautiful people and children with garlands and blossoming branches, everyone laughing, dancing, and playing pipes. That was why I said, perhaps we shall hear golden trumpets, and told you to open the window."
How funny. Mary said. That is exactly what it feels like. And if all the flowers, leaves, birds, and wild creatures danced past at once, what a crowd it would be. I am sure they would dance, sing, and play flutes, and that would be the music floating on the wind. They both laughed, not because the idea was silly, but because they liked it so much. A little later, the nurse helped Colin get ready. She noticed that instead of lying still like a log while being dressed, he sat up and tried to help. He talked and laughed with Mary the entire time.
This is one of his good days, sir.
she said to Dr. Craven, who stopped by to check on him.
He is in such good spirits that it makes him feel stronger. I will stop by again later this afternoon, after he comes inside.
Dr. Craven said.
I must see how going out agrees with him. I only wish
He added in a very low voice.
that he would let you go with him. I would rather resign from this case right now, sir, than even stay here while that is suggested.
The nurse answered with sudden firmness.
I hadn't actually decided to suggest it.
The doctor said, with his usual slight nervousness.
We will try the experiment. Dickon is a boy I would trust with a newborn baby.
The strongest footman in the house carried Colin downstairs and placed him in his wheelchair, where Dickon was waiting outside. Once the servant finished arranging his blankets and cushions, Colin waved his hand to him and the nurse.
You have my permission to go.
He said. They both left quickly, and it must be admitted that they giggled once they were safely inside the house. Dickon began to push the wheelchair slowly and steadily. Mary walked beside it, and Colin leaned back, looking up at the sky. The arch of the sky seemed incredibly high, and the small, snowy clouds looked like white birds floating on outspread wings in the crystal blue. The wind swept down from the moor in soft, deep breaths, filled with a wild, clean, sweet scent. Colin kept lifting his chest to breathe it in, and his large eyes looked as if they, rather than his ears, were listening intently.
There are so many sounds of singing, humming, and calling out.
He said.
What is that scent in the wind?
It is the gorse on the moor opening up.
Dickon answered.
Oh, the bees are working wonderfully today.
Not a single person was to be seen along the paths they took. In fact, every gardener and helper had cleared out. They wound in and out of the shrubbery and circled the fountain beds, following their carefully planned route just for the thrill of the mystery. But when they finally turned onto the long walk beside the ivy-covered walls, an exciting sense of anticipation made them begin to speak in whispers, for reasons they could not explain. This is it. Mary whispered. This is where I used to walk up and down, wondering and wondering.
Is it?
Colin said, his eyes eagerly searching the ivy.
But I can't see anything.
He whispered.
There is no door.
That is what I thought. Mary said. Then a lovely, breathless silence fell as the wheelchair rolled forward. That is the garden where Ben Weatherstaff works. Mary said.
Is it?
Colin said. After a few more yards, Mary whispered again. This is where the robin flew over the wall. She said. Is it? Colin cried. Oh, I wish you would come again. And that, Mary said with quiet delight, pointing under a large lilac bush, is where he perched on the small pile of dirt and showed me the key. Then Colin sat up. Where there, he cried, his eyes growing as wide as the wolf's in Little Red Riding Hood. Dickon stood still and the wheelchair stopped. And this, Mary said, stepping onto the garden bed close to the ivy, is where.
I went to talk to him when he chirped at me from the top of the wall. And this is the ivy the wind blew back. She took hold of the hanging green curtain. Oh, is it?
Is it? Colin gasped. And here is the handle, and here is the door. Dickon, push him in quickly. And Dickon did it with one strong, steady, magnificent push. Colin fell back against his cushions, gasping with delight. He covered his eyes with his hands and kept them there, shutting out everything until they were inside. The wheelchair stopped as if by magic, and the door was closed.
Only then did he lower his hands and look around and around, just as Dickon and Mary had once done. A delicate green veil of young leaves had crept over the walls, the earth, the trees, and the swinging vines. In the grass under the trees, inside the gray urns in the alcoves, and scattered everywhere were splashes of gold, purple, and white. The trees above his head showed pink and snowy blossoms. There was a fluttering of wings, faint sweet bird calls, humming bees, and rich scents everywhere. The sun fell warm upon his face like a gentle hand. In wonder, Mary and Dickon stood and stared at him. He looked completely different because a healthy pink glow had spread all over him, across his pale face, his neck, and his hands. "I will get well."
I will get well, he cried. Mary, Dickon, I will get well. And I will live fors. Ve. And ever and ever.
Wait.
Chapter 21, Ben Weatherstaff. One of the strangest things about living in the world is that only now and then are you absolutely sure you are going to live forever and ever. You sometimes feel it when you get up at the tender, solemn hour of dawn. If you go outside and stand alone, throwing your head back to look up into the sky, you can watch the pale colors slowly change and flush. Marvelous, mysterious things happen until the eastern horizon almost makes you cry out, and your heart stands still at the strange, unchanging majesty of the sunrise, something that has happened every morning for thousands and thousands of years. You know it then, if only for a moment. You also feel it sometimes when you stand alone in the woods at sunset, as the deep, mysterious golden light filters through the branches. The stillness seems to repeat something you cannot quite hear, no matter how hard you try. Sometimes the immense quiet of the dark blue night sky, with millions of stars waiting and watching, makes you certain. Sometimes a sound of far-off music makes it true, and sometimes it is just a look in someone's eyes. It was just like that for Colin when he first saw, heard, and felt the springtime inside the four high walls of the hidden garden. That afternoon, the whole world seemed to dedicate itself to being perfect, radiantly beautiful, and kind to this one boy. Perhaps out of pure heavenly goodness, spring had come and crowded every beautiful thing it possibly could into that single place. More than once, Dickon stopped what he was doing and stood still, shaking his head softly with a growing wonder in his eyes.
"Oh, it's lovely,"
he said.
"I am 12 going on 13, and there are a lot of afternoons in 13 years, but it seems to me I've never seen one as lovely as this one here."
Yes, it is a lovely one, Mary said, sighing from pure joy. I'll bet it's the loveliest afternoon there ever was in this world.
"Do you think
Colin asked with dreamy thoughtfulness.
that maybe it was made like this on purpose just for me?"
My goodness, Mary cried admiringly. That was a bit of good Yorkshire, you're a doing first rate that you are. And delight reigned. They drew his chair under the plum tree, which was snow-white with blossoms and buzzing with the music of bees. It was like a king's canopy, a fairy king's. Near it were flowering cherry trees and apple trees with pink and white buds, some of which had already burst wide open. Through the blossoming branches of the canopy, patches of blue sky looked down like wonderful eyes. Mary and Dickon worked a little here and there while Colin watched them. They brought him treasures to look at, buds that were opening, buds that were tightly closed, twigs with fresh green leaves just showing, a woodpecker's feather that had dropped on the grass, and the empty shell of an early hatched bird. Dickon pushed the chair slowly around the garden, stopping every few moments to let him look at the wonders springing from the earth or hanging down from the trees. It felt like being taken on a royal tour through the land of a magic king and queen, shown all the mysterious riches it contained.
"I wonder if we will see the robin."
Colin said.
"Y'all see him often enough after a bit.
Dickon answered.
When the eggs hatch, that little fellow will be kept so busy it will make his head spin. Y'all see him flying back and forth, carrying worms almost as big as himself. There will be so much noise in the nest when he gets there that it will completely fluster him, and he'll hardly know which wide-open mouth to drop the first piece into. There will be gaping beaks and squawks on every side. Mother says that, when she sees how hard a robin has to work to keep those hungry mouths filled, she feels like a lady with nothing to do. She says she's seen the little birds working so hard it seemed like sweat must be dripping off them, even if people can't see it."
This made them giggle so delightedly that they had to cover their mouths with their hands, remembering they must not be heard. Colin had been instructed in the rule of whispers and low voices several days before. He liked the mystery of it and did his best, but in the middle of such excitement, it was hard to never laugh louder than a whisper. Every moment of the afternoon was full of new discoveries, and every hour the sunshine grew more golden. The wheelchair had been drawn back under the canopy of branches. Dickon had sat down on the grass and was just pulling out his wooden pipe when Colin noticed something he hadn't had time to see before.
That's a very old tree over there, isn't it?
He said. Dickon looked across the grass at the tree, and Mary looked too. There was a brief moment of silence.
Yes.
Dickon answered gently, his voice very low. Mary gazed at the tree and thought.
The branches are completely gray, and there isn't a single leaf anywhere.
Colin went on.
It's completely dead, isn't it?
Yes.
Dickon admitted.
But those roses that have climbed all over it will hide almost every bit of the dead wood once they are full of leaves and flowers. It won't look dead then. It'll be the prettiest of all.
Mary still gazed at the tree and thought.
It looks as if a big branch was broken off.
Colin said.
I wonder how that happened.
It happened many years ago.
Dickon answered.
Lo.
He added, with a sudden, relieved start as he laid his hand on Colin's arm.
Look at that robin. There he is. He's been hunting for food for his mate.
Colin was almost too late, but he just caught sight of him, a flash of the red-breasted bird with something in his beak. The robin darted through the greenery and into the overgrown corner, disappearing from view. Colin leaned back against his cushion again, laughing a little.
He's taking her afternoon tea to her. Perhaps it's 5 o'clock. I think I'd like some tea myself.
And so they were safe. It was magic that sent the robin. Mary whispered to Dickon afterward. I know it was magic. Both she and Dickon had been terrified that Colin might ask about the tree with the broken branch from 10 years ago. They had talked about it beforehand, and Dickon had rubbed his head anxiously.
We must act as if it's no different from the other trees.
He had said.
We could never tell him how it broke, poor lad. If he says anything about it, we must try to look cheerful.
Yes, we must. Mary had answered. But she hadn't felt very cheerful when she looked at the tree. In those few moments, she wondered if there was any truth in the other thing Dickon had said. He had kept rubbing his rust-red hair in a puzzled way, but a comforted look had begun to soften his blue eyes.
Mrs. Craven was a very lovely young lady.
He had said rather hesitantly.
And Mother thinks maybe she's around Misselthwaite Manor a lot of the time, watching over Master Colin, just like all mothers do when they are taken from this world. They have to come back, you see. Maybe she's been in this garden, and maybe it was her who set us to work and told us to bring him here.
Mary thought he was talking about magic. She was a firm believer in magic. Secretly, she believed that Dickon worked magic, good magic, of course, on everything around him. That was why people loved him so much and wild creatures knew he was their friend. She wondered if his gift had summoned the robin at just the right moment, right when Colin asked that dangerous question. She felt his magic working all afternoon, making Colin look like an entirely different boy. It didn't seem possible that he was the same wild, screaming child who had beaten and bitten his pillow. Even his pale, ivory skin seemed to change. The faint glow of color that had appeared on his face, neck, and hands when he first entered the garden never completely faded. He looked as if he were made of warm flesh and blood, instead of ivory or wax. They saw the robin carry food to his mate 2 or 3 times, and it made Colin think of afternoon tea, so he decided they must have some.
Go and tell one of the servants to bring some tea in a basket to the rhododendron walk.
He said.
Then you and Dickon can bring it in here.
It was a wonderful idea and easily done. Soon, a white cloth was spread on the grass, covered with hot tea, buttered toast, and crumpets. They ate with hearty appetites, while several birds on busy errands paused to see what was happening, eagerly investigating the crumbs. Nut and Shell dashed up the trees with pieces of cake, and Soot took a whole half of a buttered crumpet into a corner. He pecked at it, examined it, turned it over, and made hoarse little remarks to himself before deciding to swallow the whole thing down joyfully in one big gulp. The afternoon was drifting toward its quiet, mellow evening hours. The sun's rays grew deeper and more golden, the bees were heading back to their hives, and the birds flew by less frequently. Dickon and Mary sat on the grass beside the repacked tea basket, ready to be taken back to the house. Colin lay back against his cushions, his thick hair pushed away from his forehead, his face looking healthy and full of natural color.
I don't want this afternoon to end.
He said.
But I will come back tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after, and the day after that.
Y'all get plenty of fresh air now, won't you? Mary said.
I am going to get nothing but fresh air.
He answered.
I've seen the spring now, and I'm going to see the summer. I'm going to watch everything grow here, and I'm going to grow here myself.
That you will.
Dickon said.
We'll have you walking around here, and digging just like everyone else before long.
Colin flushed deeply.
Walk.
He said.
Dig, will I really?
Dickon gave him a careful, gentle look. Neither he nor Mary had ever asked if there was actually anything wrong with his legs.
Of course you will.
He said firmly.
You've got legs of your own, just like anyone else.
Mary felt a bit frightened until she heard Colin's response.
Nothing is really wrong with them.
He said.
But they are so thin and weak. They shake so much that I'm afraid to try standing on them.
Both Mary and Dickon let out a sigh of relief.
Once you stop being afraid, y'all stand on them.
Dickon said cheerily.
And y'all stop being afraid very soon.
Will I?
Colin said, lying still as if he were thinking it over. They were very quiet for a little while. The sun was sinking lower. It was that time of day when everything grows still, and they had indeed had a busy, exciting afternoon. Colin looked completely relaxed and comfortable. Even the animals had stopped moving around and had gathered close to rest near them. Soot had perched on a low branch, pulling up one leg and lazily closing his eyes. Mary secretly thought he looked like he might start snoring at any second. In the middle of this quiet stillness, it was quite startling when Colin suddenly raised his head and whispered in a loud, alarmed voice.
Who is that man?
Dickon and Mary scrambled to their feet.
A man.
They both gasped in low, hurried voices. Colin pointed toward the high wall.
Look.
He whispered excitedly.
Just look.
Mary and Dickon spun around to look. There was Ben Weatherstaff's angry face, glaring at them over the wall from the top of a ladder. He was actually shaking his fist at Mary.
If I wasn't a bachelor, and you were a child of mine,
He shouted.
I'd give you a good whipping.
He climbed up another step threateningly, as if he intended to jump down and deal with her himself. But as she walked toward him, he clearly changed his mind, staying on the top step of the ladder and shaking his fist down at her.
I never thought much of you.
He scolded.
I couldn't stand you the first time I set eyes on you. A scrawny, pale-faced young nuisance, always asking questions and poking your nose where it wasn't wanted. I never knew how you got so friendly with me. If it hadn't been for that Robin, drat him.
Ben Weatherstaff. Mary called out, catching her breath. She stood below him, looking up with a gasp. Ben Weatherstaff, it was the Robin who showed me the way. It looked as if Ben really would climb down onto their side of the wall. He was so outraged.
You young troublemaker.
He shouted down at her.
Blaming your bad behavior on a robin, though he's certainly bold enough for anything. Him showing you the way. Him, oh, you good-for-nothing.
He stopped, and she could see his next words burst out because he was overpowered by curiosity.
How in the world did you get in here?
It was the robin who showed me the way. She protested stubbornly. He didn't know he was doing it, but he did, and I can't tell you from down here while you're shaking your fist at me. He stopped shaking his fist instantly, and his jaw dropped as he stared past her at something moving across the grass toward him. At the first sound of the old man's angry words, Colin had been so surprised that he could only sit up and listen, spellbound. But halfway through the outburst, he recovered himself and beckoned imperiously to Dickon.
Wheel me over there.
He commanded.
Wheel me right up close and stop directly in front of him.
And this is what Ben Weatherstaff saw that made his jaw drop. A wheelchair with luxurious cushions and blankets was coming toward him, looking like a royal carriage because a young Raja leaned back in it. He had a look of royal authority in his large, dark-lashed eyes, and his thin, white hand was extended haughtily toward him. The chair stopped right under Ben Weatherstaff's nose. It was really no wonder his mouth fell open.
Do you know who I am?
The Raja demanded. How Ben Weatherstaff stared, his old red eyes fixed on the boy as if he were seeing a ghost. He stared and stared, swallowing hard, unable to say a word.
Do you know who I am?
Colin demanded, even more imperiously.
Answer me.
Ben Weatherstaff raised his gnarled hand, passing it over his eyes and forehead, and then answered in a strange, shaky voice.
Who you are.
He said.
Yes, I know that, with your mother's eyes staring at me out of your face. Lord knows how you got here, but you are the poor cripple.
Colin forgot that he had ever worried about his back. His face flushed scarlet, and he sat bolt upright.
I am not a cripple.
He shouted furiously.
I am not.
He is not. Mary cried, almost shouting up the wall in her fierce indignation. He doesn't have a lump as big as a pin. I checked, and there is nothing there, not one. Ben Weatherstaff rubbed his forehead again and stared as if he could never look enough. His hand shook, his lips trembled, and his voice wavered. He was a simple, tactless old man, and he could only repeat what he had heard others say.
You don't have a crooked back.
He asked hoarsely.
No.
Colin shouted.
You don't have crooked legs.
Ben asked, his voice trembling even more hoarsely. It was too much. The sudden energy Colin usually wasted on his tantrums surged through him in a completely new way. He had never been accused of having crooked legs, even in whispers, and the old man's simple, honest belief that they were crooked was more than his pride could bear. His anger and insulted dignity made him forget everything else, filling him with a power he had never felt before, an almost unnatural strength.
Come here.
He shouted to Dickon, as he began to throw off the blankets and free his legs.
Come here this minute.
Dickon was at his side in a second. Mary caught her breath in a sharp gasp and felt herself turn pale. He can do it, he can do it, he can do it, he can. She whispered rapidly to herself, as fast as she could. After a brief, intense struggle, the blankets were tossed onto the ground. Dickon held Colin's arm, his thin legs swung out and his bare feet touched the grass. Colin stood upright, completely upright, as straight as an arrow and looking incredibly tall. His head was thrown back and his dark eyes flashed like lightning.
Look at me.
He shouted up at Ben Weatherstaff.
Just look at me, you look at me.
He's as straight as I am.
Dickon cried.
He's as straight as any lad in Yorkshire.
What Ben Weatherstaff did next seemed incredibly strange to Mary. He choked, gasped, and suddenly tears ran down his weathered, wrinkled cheeks as he clapped his old hands together.
Oh,
He burst out.
the lies people tell. You're as thin as a rail and as white as a ghost, but there's not a single lump on you. You'll make a man yet. God bless you.
Dickon held Colin's arm firmly, but the boy did not falter. He stood straighter and straighter, looking Ben Weatherstaff right in the face.
I am your master when my father is away,
He said.
and you must obey me. This is my garden. Don't you dare say a word about it. Climb down from that ladder and go out to the long walk. Miss Mary will meet you and bring you in. I want to talk to you. We didn't want you here, but now y'all have to be in on the secret. Be quick.
Ben Weatherstaff's grumpy old face was still wet from that sudden, strange rush of tears. He could not seem to take his eyes off the thin, straight boy standing there on his own feet with his head thrown back.
Oh, lad.
He almost whispered.
Oh, my lad.
Then, remembering himself, he touched his hat in a respectful gardener's salute and said,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and obediently disappeared down the ladder.